Good afternoon. I am Zariah Kano, the Student Senate President for Lorain County Community College, and
Hi, my name is Danielle Pavlik, and I'm the Vice President for Lorain County Community College Student Senate.
thank you very much. And welcome to our third event in our Financial Aid Awareness Month series with Carrie Short from Lorain County Community College's Student Financial Aid Office, formerly known as Financial Aid Services, or Financial Services. Today is a space for you guys to ask your questions to the financial aid staff and learn about who they are, what is student employment, and what is federal work study, and how it benefits students, and how can Carrie and Student Financial Aid Office help you students at LCCC. So with that, I present Carrie Short from the Student Financial Aid Office, and we will begin.
Awesome. All right, so Zariah, you're my driver today for my presentation. Just as Zariah mentioned, our topics today are student employment and federal work study. Are you going to do the presentation mode, or there we go? Cool. Okay. And my name is Carrie Short. I'm the director of the Student Financial Aid Office. She did mention we changed our name from Financial Services. Some of those things that we did that were under services are still getting done just by the Student Accounts Office, which renamed themselves from the Bursar, because not a whole lot of people know what a Bursar is, but the Student Accounts Office is that same office, and they do everything with student accounts, take payments and things like that. Whereas in Student Financial Aid, we handle pretty much everything else related to financial aid. And if you'd like an overview of that, be sure to watch the first video that we did this month, which was an open forum, and we talked about so many different topics. There we go. So we're just going to jump right in. You can see there are some questions already prepared in the chat, and as you're joining us, if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll address them at the end. I think a lot of them actually I will be going over just as part of the presentation. So it's really important to know that all student workers are student employees, but not all student employees are eligible for federal work study. And so we're going to talk about that. But just know that the bigger picture, the bigger bucket of the students who work at the college are all considered student employees, and therefore must meet student employee criteria. There are a number of different requirements, and they have recently changed for a few different reasons that I have just in some fine print on the next slide. They are waiting final approval. Just so you know, there's the way that procedures and policies work at the college is that they are presented to the Operations Council, who reviews them, and then they are available for comment for 2 weeks. So we're right now in that commenting period, and so very soon we should know if there are any adjustments that need to be made to this policy, these procedures, or if they are good to go, and then they will become official and we'll move on. So we're looking at about a March 1st deadline. However, some of these are requirements, as you'll see, that we really don't have much wiggle room on, so we had to start them already. So criteria for students to work at LCCC, you can see there are a bunch of them. We've got 9 of them. Need to be at least 18 years old, must be a high school graduate or received a GED certificate. Those two, just so you know, kind of eliminate any of our dual enrollment high school students or CCP students from being employed on campus. And the biggest point for that is that they're considered minors, and there are all sorts of IRS and labor laws that apply to working minors. So as a college, as you know, what our students are considered, those guidelines are actually, as you can see down there at the bottom, have a lot to do with IRS regulations. And like I said, too, the labor laws. The next couple all require any kind of enrollment actually at LCCC. So you must be enrolled in and maintain 6 LCCC administered credits throughout the term of employment. Must be enrolled in an LCCC administered program of study of at least 2 semesters in length, and must be seeking to obtain a degree, certificate, or other recognized educational credential offered by LCCC. Those, I will tell you very specifically, are part of the IRS regulations, as well as state requirement for OPERS, which is the state retirement system, which, you know, as a state institution, we are required to pay into. However, there are different stipulations for student workers, but if students aren't really students because they aren't, you know, taking classes that go towards a degree or program, or their degree, you know, LCCC won't be conferring the degree. They, you know, they're not really considered students of LCCC. So there's a question in the chat. Does that mean that UP students are not eligible if they are not duly enrolled? So that's true. So university partnership students are not eligible to be student employees at LCCC if their final degree does not come from LCCC. And most university partnership programs do not work that way. There are a few, I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but there are some where students are actually enrolled in the LCC classes and they will get, you know, degree or certificate from LCCC as well as the school where they're participating in the university partnership. But yes, that's true. It also means that students who are guest students here, so transient students, that just means that like if we actually have more transient students than our students are transient at other institutions, guest students, what that means is that we could have, let's say you have somebody who lives around here, you know, lives around Elyria, and but goes away for college. So let's say they go to Kent, and but over the summer they want to take classes here because it's closer and it's cheaper. So they would be a guest student. We would be the host institution for that student because their home institution is Kent State. That's where the degree is coming from. So we actually agree, this was actually a topic on one of our sessions too, we agree to not award financial aid to that student because they're not technically our student. Yes, they're enrolled in LCC administered classes, but they're not in seeking to obtain their degree, certificate, or other recognized credential from LCCC. Okay, so the second column is more, you know, general, doesn't get into that nitty gritty, but they should maintain a 2.0 GPA plus for students who are receiving federal work study, they do need to be meeting satisfactory academic progress. We'll touch on that. Must have their eligibility approved by the student employee process, which is getting a little bit of an overhaul right now. This now involves student financial aid, human resources, and also the supervisor of the position. May work up to 20 hours per week for no more than 2 departments concurrently. So it could be 5 hours in one department, 15 in the other, or a combination, you know, as long as it doesn't exceed 20 hours. And then must complete all employment paperwork and a criminal background check prior to commencing employment. That hasn't changed, that's been there. So has the hours requirement. Recently, you know, because there hasn't been a lot of strong oversight in this area, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but some of these over time, some of these criteria just kind of melted into some others. So there's been a really big misconception that federal work study students can only work 20 hours per week, but departmentally funded students can work 25, and that's a fallacy, completely false. These requirements that you see on the screen they still need to be approved, but you know, there isn't a whole lot that can be done because there are so many regulations, but these are the requirements for any student to work at LCCC, or even in, I was going to say on campus, but we do have some off-campus partners through career services, like some community service programs that are fantastic. And if you're interested at all, I know there are positions open. But as you can see below, these requirements meet LCCC policy, IRS regulations for student employees, U.S. Department of Education regulations, that's what oversees the federal work study part, and state requirements for OPERS, like I said, which is the retirement contributions. So where do students get started? Well, all positions are posted on LCCC's HR website. This is all student and non-student positions, so you kind of go to the same place to get started. And I put the direct link in there just to kind of save you a couple of steps. But there are different boxes. There's ones for faculty, there's ones for professional technical, but the one that students are going to want to look for is student employment. And actually, oh, I'm not driving, I forgot. If you go there, once you hit student employment, it looks just like if you were applying for, you know, a position at the college, not as not as a student, which, by the way, students, you're still allowed to do. But you have to follow the process. This process all belongs at this stage to human resources, and you do have to follow their process, and you follow the same process that I did when I applied for my position just about 2 years ago. You have to create an account, you have to upload your resume and other, any documentation that you want as part of your application packet, and then you have to submit it. And I do want to let you know that LCCC Career Services can assist you with the application process or resume building, interview skills, etc. I put their email address there and their phone number. And because we are changing the processes for the, we're just trying to become more efficient. Career Services used to handle a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for student employment, but by rearranging it and putting it more with departments that do more of that technical stuff like student financial aid and HR, and that allows our wonderful Career Services folks to really focus in on helping students with the process, maybe matching them up with skills, or really just helping them realize that on-campus jobs or off-campus jobs are available. Resume building, which is so important for not just after you graduate, or but right now too. If you have a resume that you can upload even for these student employee positions, that'd be fantastic. And as we get into this, they also have grand ideas, and of course right now we're still on some COVID restrictions, but job fairs and just other ways to connect our students with these open positions on campus. And I have a slide later on that's going to talk about why we really want to do that, why we want to connect students to these on-campus positions or off-campus. Okay.
Before we move on, I wanna go ahead and show them.
Yeah,
show
that'd be great.
Students what the site looks like. So let's open. So this is what that link will lead you to, and you will go down to where it says student employment.
I think you need to share that part of the screen. Sorry, we're still seeing the PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, gotcha. Where did it go? Share content. Firefox. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
There it is. So the link that Carrie has provided in the PowerPoint, which will be available in the chat and in the video's description once it's published. You will go to student employment, and that will lead you to this page where all of our on-campus, like Carrie said, our on-campus and some off-campus positions are available for view. And when you go to whatever position you desire, it will lead you to create an account and all of that jazz, which Career Services can help you out with.
Before you navigate away from this, can you go to the previous tab? I just want to show everybody something. Okay, scroll up. And as you can see, if you are already, so this process, the creating an account, you only have to do that once. So so if I wanted to apply for a different job on campus, I would, pick the right category and then I would apply for it. I wouldn't have to create a new account because I'm already in the system, in HR system. So if you're already an employee here, you don't have to redo that. I know it says, are you a current employee? That doesn't affect students, but it just jarred my memory that, you don't have to go in and create an account every time. Or maybe last year you worked at one office and this year you want to apply for a different job. You can totally do that. You just would go through the student employment link down there, a little picture. Okay.
So right here.
Yep.
All right, and I will go back to the presentation. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, I have to stop sharing and then share again because it's being a butt. There we go. Okay. And I'm not sure if you have a slide, but one of our questions is, what is the difference between federal work study and departmental student employment?
Yep.
Okay.
I can't remember what it is, but it's coming up. It's coming up.
Okay, cool. All right, so next one. Here we go.
So Well, I guess we should have looked at this while we were still there, but some positions are listed as FWS or federal work study only. If you'd like to know if you're eligible for federal work study before you apply for positions, you can contact us at finade@lorainccc.edu and we'll let you know. And then the next one should have the difference. Almost, we're getting there. So why do some positions require federal work study? Well, federal work study is a need-based program. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Education. What's unique about this program as far as student employment is that 100% of the wages for students who are eligible for federal work study and have it as part of their package are paid by the U.S. Department of Education. Whereas 100% of non-federal work study wages, so the departmentally paid students, 100% of their wages are paid by the college. So by requiring federal work study eligible students for their open positions, these LCC departments can save valuable department resources, money, for other needs and enhancements that eventually or directly go right back to helping the student experience. So how do I know if I'm eligible for federal work study? First, you have to have a FAFSA. File a FAFSA. You should always file it anyway, but it is required for any federal program. Filing a FAFSA every year helps you receive every bit of financial aid that you're eligible for. Plus, we use that to kind of seek out people who might be eligible for scholarships that we haven't yet given away. You need to complete all of the requirements. That includes things like satisfactory academic progress or submit an appeal if you're not meeting those SAP. That's the abbreviation if you're not meeting the SAP standards. Submit other requested documentations like tax forms, make sure all of your classes are on plan. And then you can either just apply for the position or you can ask ahead of time. So when you're being considered for a position, the supervisor will submit your name for review. My office, Student Financial Aid, will check to make sure that you meet all of the criteria as well as review your work study eligibility. Because remember, if students are eligible for work study, we want to make sure that we're paying them from that work study budget. You can also, like I said on the screen before, go ahead and ask us directly if you're eligible. We can tell you. So what happens after I apply? Once you hit your application, the supervisor can review it and schedule an interview. So why would I want to be a student employee? Well, there are three really good reasons. Students or supervisors understand that you're a student first. That means flexibility with schedules. Oh, hey, I've got, exams coming up and I really could use the time to study. Can I switch my hours? You will find that most of our on campus, like I said, we've got some off campus too, but most student supervisors are flexible in that way because they understand the role that you play here. Student first, student employee second. You might not see that flexibility off campus, not through LCCC employee. There's an opportunity for hands-on experiences and networking. Maybe your job is directly related to your major, maybe it's not, or maybe you're getting fantastic office experience, which is something that some people take for granted, but it's really important. Either way, you're making those connections that can help you in the future. Letters of recommendation. I myself have written a number of letters of recommendation for previous work study students, for graduate school, for jobs, for just whatever. But you make really good connections, and I know Zarai knows this too because she was a student employee, by the way, in career services, so she knows a lot. But those relationships that you form with the staff members, especially if they're in an area that you're interested in, maybe you're a lab assistant and you want to get into tutoring or anything like that, whatever, you can relate it back to your experience and count it on your resume, because career services can help you with that, with real actual experience, because that's what it is. It's paid experience. It is a job. And then also you can save money while you make money, because if you are working on campus, some of those off-campus jobs, you can actually work in between classes. Take a shift in between classes rather than commute home and then have to come back or go somewhere else for a shift. So that, like I said, I didn't say, but I wanted to say, we were just going to do a very broad overview because I think that It's good to build that foundation, but I knew that there were going to be a lot of questions. So I'm going to start. And so I think if you look in the chat, I think I think some questions may have been truncated there. So I'm going to start with that first one that we can see part of. How do I find these jobs? Because we've already talked about that. So that's good. You go out to the HR website. How do I find an on-campus job, regardless if it's work study or department funded? Those, I don't want you to go back to that, but it will tell you in the description or when you click on the link where the location is. So I remember seeing one of those student employment jobs said there was an Oberlin, there's the Oberlin Food Bank. So it said right in the description that it's Oberlin Food Bank, which obviously can't happen on campus. So that would be one of those off-campus community service positions. And just so you know, every time you apply for it, just part of the process is we're automatically checking to see if it's going to be for federal work study, because it behooves everybody. It's in everybody's best interest to hire you as a federal work study student. It really makes no difference to you as a student employee because you're getting paid, you know, regardless. It just really helps the college because, like I said, it'll free up resources for other things, you know, other enhancements for students, other, you know, just great things that we can do, technology, who knows. But it also helps the college. We actually get an allowance, if you will. It's called an allocation of federal work study funds from the government every year. And they notice if you don't spend all of your federal work study dollars. And Lccc, as a college, is not a culture of really pushing federal work study, you know, for its employees because we have robust budgets. I shouldn't say that, because so many departments are used to having budgets set aside for student employees. So there is going to be a push to get, you know, students to complete these requirements or to fill out a FAFSA in order to check that eligibility, because we got our allocation for next year's federal work study and it dropped because we're not using it. And so they're like, well, why should we keep giving you money if you're not using it? Well, we want to use it. So we want to really enhance that program because, again, free money from the government. It's just like a Pell Grant, except it's not, but it kind of works the same way. Free money from the government, and we want that. How long does it take to hear back about a position that I've applied to? There are a lot of different factors in that, and I wish that I had one simple answer for you. And to be honest, because we're changing the process, it might be a little rocky at first. It might take a little bit longer, but ultimately we're hoping that these changes that we're making will help the process go a lot faster than what maybe you're used to. So when you, and some of these things student financial aid hasn't been involved in. So I noticed that somebody is here from career services, so I can tell her, I told her in the chat, like, let me know if I say something wrong, but a lot of the behind the scenes stuff right now, the way that the process is running, happens between student employment, which is out of career services right now, and human resources and the system that human resources uses. So right now, when you apply for a position, the supervisor right away can see that you applied for it. So I don't know if they get an alert or something like that through this system, but they know that you've applied for it. So then they can start reviewing those at any time. They don't have to wait until the position is closed, which is really just a time where, you know, the position comes down. There are some positions that are considered, they call it evergreen in HR. That's a new word that I used, or a new term that I learned through this process. And that just means that it's always going to stay up. So it's like an evergreen tree. It's always green. These positions are always going to be posted. But anyway, then the supervisors conduct the interviews, and then they submit the names of the students that they wish to hire to student employment right now, which is, like I said, through career services, but soon will be to student financial aid, where that process begins, where we check to make sure, are you 18? What's your program? What's your GPA? You're enrolled in enough credits, all of those types of things. We check for all of that. Then we get into, you know, boom, if you're eligible at least to be a student employee, that's fantastic. But we go one step further. We say, are you eligible for federal work study? And there are some students we can look at and because we know what the process is, and be like, oh, okay, you know what, they're going to be eligible or they're not going to be eligible. If there's not a FAFSA on file, they're automatically not eligible, but we don't want to say, hey, department, go ahead and pay them departmentally because, you know, they haven't filed a FAFSA. A lot of times we will look to see, did they file a FAFSA last year? And a lot of times they did, and they got a Pell Grant. So we reach out to the student, we're like, hey, you didn't file a FAFSA this year. So not only might you still get a Pell Grant that you're missing out on, but then we can say that you're eligible for federal work study as well. So all of this stuff is going on behind the scenes. Then we will let, this is where it changes. I don't know what happens next in the current process, but moving forward, once student financial aid determines that students are eligible or not eligible or all of those types of things, then students who are eligible go through a process to human resources where they prepared a very important and required document called a payroll authorization form. This payroll authorization form lets the payroll office know, hey, create a time card for the student so they can enter their hours and eventually get paid. But it also lets our auditors know that this student has been approved by all of these processes to work on campus. This is very, very important. And right now, part of that is, I think, where a lot of the system gets hung up. So like I said, we're really trying so hard to make this process more streamlined and easier, not just for you as the students, but also for the supervisors, because it can be frustrating to them, especially if, you know, they're, you know, really itching to hire somebody and they don't want you to get snapped up by somebody else. Yeah, so I know that doesn't exactly answer how long does it take to get back to you, but at least you know everything that happens in the process. Where are all available on-campus jobs posted? We talked about that one. When's the best time to apply for an on-campus job? That's a really good question. I don't know that you know, I think it's safe to say that most supervisors want to have somebody good to go at the beginning of the semester and be able to keep them. So if you're looking at when's the best time to apply, maybe it's over the summer. You know, if you're enrolled for 6 credits over the summer, you could get hired on campus over the summer up to those 20 hours. Maybe it's, you know, right before the fall semester. The way that, and I know there's a question later on about, you know, how do I know when I get paid, things like that. There are, you know, we have everything that we do at the college is really by semester. So you've got the summer semester, fall semester, spring semester. But you guys know probably better than anybody that there are breaks in between those semesters. So the spring semester this year, I think, ends around May 14th, but the summer semester doesn't start until like May 26th. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember exactly what the days are. So there's that period of time that's not really part of the summer semester or the spring semester. It's just kind of like out there. It's a break. Well, we actually, with the payroll office, assign that to a pay period and assign that to a semester. So even those breaks are assigned to that. So, you know, you don't necessarily want to, you know, if you want a job over the summer, you might not want to just start applying for it after the spring semester ends. You want to start a little bit early. And then as you work with supervisor, you can tell them when it is that you're looking to work. Or maybe the position posting itself specifies which term they want, which semester they want students to work. I know in student financial aid, by the way, we have a position. We can hire several students, so if anybody's watching. Ours are usually evergreen, always out there. But we, you know, we would gladly take on a student at any time, put some, you know, training towards them and hope that, you know, they stick around through, you know, summer, fall, and next spring as well. So that one's a little tricky. Keep in mind too, you know, you should feel comfortable if you see a position that's posted, you could reach out to the department and say, you know, what is it that you're looking for? You know, you should be able to reach out to them and ask them those questions. I know we would welcome, you know, any questions that students had about the position that we posted.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in. So you cover in the list we covered most of the questions in the presentation already. And I wanted to just jump down to where it says, can I save the remaining for a work study job next year? Or I would rephrase it to, if I apply for a position one semester can I have that, like, can I still have that same job the following semester, or will that need to inquire a reapply?
So that's a really good question. So the answer is that you as a student, well, you should have a conversation with the supervisor to make sure that the position, has that there is going to be work for that position into the next semester or the next year. But you as a student, the only thing that you would really need to do is make sure that you complete those requirements. Make sure that you're enrolled, make sure that you're in the right degree program, file that FAFSA. We're FAFSA pushers. We really are in student financial aid, but that's the more students that fill out a FAFSA, the more work it is for us, and that's good. We want that. But really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's really the supervisor that has to do a little more extra work in order to keep you on as that student, because every semester they have to do that paperwork. They have to submit your information so that we can review you. So you wouldn't have to reapply if you're going to keep the same position. You would not need to go back out to the HR website, apply for the same position. It might not be there because they might be expecting you to come back and work. But you would have that conversation with the supervisor, say, I do want to come back. The supervisor would submit your name moving forward to the student financial aid office for that term, and then we would do the check. We'd get the information to HR. HR would process that payroll authorization. That payroll authorization form, which you'll never see, and that's okay. It's really just between the supervisor and the payroll office. But that has to be completed by your supervisor every semester. Every semester. And that's something that's going to be new for supervisors. So we're going to have some training for them. But as far as your requirements, you really just need to make sure, file the FAFSA and keep up with those criteria. Make sure you're enrolled in the 6 credits. Make sure that you've got the 2.0 GPA. The Career Service Office is willing to work with students who might not have that 2.0 GPA. That's really on a case-by-case basis. And then that does feed into satisfactory academic progress for students who are eligible for federal work study. But there is an appeal process, and financial aid is willing to work with students who might not yet be meeting those criteria. So it's not always doesn't mean it's a no if you don't have that 2.0. That's why it says should have that 2.0.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and just take off the presentation so that it's just us talking.
Yep, that's cool.
And the next one, it's actually a question I had once I started working at Career Services, because I had transitioned from one student position to another, and I just got curious. So it says, will I be eligible for employee benefits while working as a student employee?
Okay. The question to that is no.
Yeah.
It's very good.
That out.
Yeah. There are different categories of students, and students are in their own categories. Student employees. There are subcategories of that, departmentally funded and federal work study. But yeah, no, there are no staff benefits for student employees.
Yes, and because that comes in, then that would be like a support staff position,
which students can apply for. You just wouldn't use that student employment. You probably would look at the part-time positions to apply for. Those are staff positions, and then would come with, I'm not sure. I'll be honest. They don't come. The full-time positions come with usually health benefits and things like that. But other types of benefits. We're getting into a territory I don't know the answers to, but I'm glad to answer those.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That was a question I had come under, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure the answer is no, but I can still ask.
Right. And so the question, which forms are required to be completed before I can start working? Those actually all go through HR. So, but I can tell you, it's usually an I-9, which proves your citizenship, proves that you're, eligible to be an employee in the U.S. There is a W-9, what's the W-4, which is where you list your information about, your tax and how many exemptions you want and stuff like that. And HR can help you fill out those forms. Actually, I usually get my husband to help me fill out those forms too. So, but that's part of the HR process. So, what documents do I need to bring from home to be able to work? Usually for that I-9 form, that's the one that requires the most. And you usually have to have 2 different types of forms of ID. The last time I filled one out, you could use driver's license and a passport, or a passport and a social security card, but it's actually listed on the form. And HR, actually, when I got hired, that because that system that you saw that HR uses where they post the jobs, you actually get actually, let's talk about that, the hiring process. Like, once you are hired, it's not just like, okay, you're hired, ready to go. There are a number of emails that go back and forth between you and the automated system for HR that you kind of have to be prepared for. And I'll be honest, whatever you as a student employee have to do, it's the same thing that I did when I was getting hired a year and a half ago. So it's kind of a little intense if you're new to the process, but there are emails every step of the way. So you'll get an email, you have to enter your information for the I-9, get an email about entering the information for the W-4 and completing that process. You'll get an email asking you to authorize to sign off on the background check. That's required for everybody who works at the college. And so that's kind of like a back and forth. What happens is, and again, I'm really gonna gloss over it because it's not a part that my office has been involved in. But once the department decides to hire you, so once the supervisor says, yes, I want to hire this person, that if you're not already in the system, keep in mind, you only have to go through that process once. So Zarai, you're already in the system. So if something should happen or you want to come back for another certificate and you're not going to be university partnership and you're not transient, you're already in the system. So you don't have to do all of that background check and everything again. You would just fill out the paperwork and then they would be like, yeah, you're hired. I'm sure. But so it does get a little scary, and you do have to monitor your email. So to be honest, a lot of the times when, to go back to that question about how long does the process take, if you're a brand new student employee, you're part of that process. And so if you don't check your emails and you're not completing those steps, it could take as long as it takes for you to remember to check your email and complete those steps. So, so I think that, some offices get a bad rap, but really it's confusing, and it can be very intimidating for students. I think, to be an 18-year-old, trying to figure out like, wait, what I have to do. I mean, you guys are tech savvy, students are ridiculously tech savvy, but if you've never been through this process, it can be intimidating. And that's why Career Services is going to be so happy to step up into that support role to help students through that process. They're really excited about getting back to their student contact and less of the processing stuff that we kind of live for in financial aid. We're kind of switching gears and letting them get to that one-on-one stuff, which is really helpful. Yeah. So the available payment methods, I want to talk about that. Right now, it is a paper check. I believe that's the only one, and that's because there's direct deposit. This is payroll.
No,
so,
there's direct deposit.
Sorry, I was thinking about refund checks for financial aid, which are checks.
Yeah, refund checks are only paid. Yeah, they're only checks.
Right. They will be direct deposit someday, but right now they are just checks. But yeah, I really would highly recommend the direct deposit because your money's there, and if it's a holiday, it's kind of there the day before. So that's really nice. What's the pay schedule and when can I expect to receive my pay? So that's actually part of the payroll office. And as we move forward in training some of the supervisors, we want to make sure that that's information that students have. And so it's out there on CampusNet. And as a student employee, even though you still are a student employee, you will get another email address, which is really confusing. It's not what's the student email, Zarai? It's like
the student email is normally the first letter of your first name, a dot, your last name. It can have like a 1 or a 2 or no name at all. And then it's at mail.lorainccc.edu. It's long. Yeah. But if you apply to work on campus, you get your own work email, which in our case, it's still the same, the initial of your first name, and then no dot. It's just first initial and then your last name @lorainccc.edu. So there's no that @mail in between.
Yeah.
Or
So that's something that I'll be honest, it took me a little getting used to, because I'd be trying to email our student employees in our office, and they're like, I didn't get it. And they're like, where are you sending it? I'm like, your student email? They're like, oh yeah, I don't check that. I'm like, okay. So it's
And
just, it takes
students
a
should
little bit
still
getting
have
used to.
that their student emails forward to a
Yes.
personal
Yeah.
email or to their work email, even like I do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that way
So,
that communication is still going on. But yeah.
Charlie, do you know, can you answer this? With your, because you have that employee email address, can you access the CampusNet?
If I'm on a campus computer,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So,
And on a personal laptop, like a personal device, I can still access it, but it's tricky because I have to have all other accounts signed out. So all my student email, my personal email, all of that
okay.
has to be signed out in order for me to sign in and access CampusNet.
So we're not going to talk about CampusNet then, but I would say if you become a student employee, talk to the supervisor about that schedule. Payday is every other Friday, and sometimes there are adjustments because of holidays. Doesn't happen very often, but it did at the end of 2020. We got paid a day early because 12/31 was a Thursday. So and so we got paid that Thursday instead of that Friday. When can you expect to receive the pay? It is every 2 weeks. And the way that it works for part-time employees, including student employees, is you have to enter your time sheet. There's a time system that can only work, I think, when you're on campus. And so you actually, like, I just approved timesheets today for my part-time staff and my student employees, and it was the pay period that ended yesterday and the 2 weeks before. So actually, I have a copy of it. I'm at home today, so I have a copy of it. I keep a copy at home, I keep a copy at work. But so the timesheet that I always do it on Mondays, but it's not due till Wednesdays. But I'm afraid I'm going to forget, and I don't want anybody to not get paid. So the time period is so my part-time employees and my students worked any hours that they worked from February 1 through February 14th. That's a 2-week period. I approved their time today, and they will get paid on February 26th. So that first pay period, that first paycheck, once you start working, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer, to get paid. So it's a little bit behind. But then, as long as if you're working every week some hours, then you get into that cycle. And all of that, by the way, all of that payroll stuff is out of the payroll office. Directly. I just happen to, as a manager, I need to have that information for my staff.
Yes, and I want to jump in and say that what happened there?
I turned off my video for a second. I have to blow my nose.
No, you're fine. I was like, what happened? I wanted to jump in and say that it is very important for student employees and federal work study positions to really communicate with their supervisors, because right now with the pandemic, a lot of student employees, some of them are on campus, but like Danielle and I, we've been working from home this entire time. And so to make sure that there are tasks that you can do from home, that you have access to your email and all that stuff, that really has to be communicated with your supervisor. And in my case, well, in our case, really, because we're remote and we're on our personal devices, we don't have access to put in our time card. So what we do is we use Excel, Microsoft Excel, and that is our time card. And we put in our hours, the days we worked, and what tasks we did during that shift, and we send it to her, and she does the whole process with payroll to get that through. But that was established through communication. So it's really important to communicate with your supervisor and your manager, no matter what department you're in, even like, especially on campus, but even if you have a job off campus, please communicate with your advisor and your managers and all of that.
Yeah, and regarding communication, as student financial aid takes over some of these more behind the scenes stuff, we want to communicate more with the supervisors to let them know and this kind of relates to one of these questions. So let me get to that questions first. Can I save the remaining, or I only used a portion of my work study award, and then the very next one is, can I save the remaining for a work study job next year? So let's talk about that. Work study is awarded. Right now we do it based on semester, but just because students, sometimes they're 12 credits, sometimes they're 6, and because those payroll authorizations happen by semester, we evaluate federal work study eligibility by semester. So sometimes, we'll determine that you're eligible for a lot more than you'll earn, either because maybe it's slow to get started, maybe there's not a whole lot of hours right away, or for whatever reason. Remember, the maximum that a student can work is 20 hours a week. So we try to, if we can, we try to award that maximum. Lots of reasons why we don't, but that doesn't mean that the student's not eligible. So that's really complicated, and I don't want to go down that path. I kind of already did. But so if you don't earn that in that semester, we adjust to what you actually earned, and then it frees up what you may be eligible to earn the next semester or the next semester. So there's only 3 semesters in an academic year. We start with summer, and it runs with the same time as a FAFSA too. So like the 21-22 FAFSA, which hopefully you have all filed by now, covers or will apply to summer 21, fall 21, and summer 20 or spring 22. Wow, time really flies. And those awards are only based on those terms. So within a year, yes, we can push forward, any eligibility to the next term, but if you don't use all of it in a year, that's okay. We'll just recheck for eligibility for next year. But some students, some students are eligible for the maximum of 20 hours, a week, and some are only eligible for what amounts to be like 10 hours a week. That doesn't mean they can only work 10 hours a week. They can, like, let's say 10 hours a week is, actually, I knew what it is. 10 hours a week is, well, I was going to do some math, but I don't want to be wrong because we're recording this. But let's say that, well, actually, it's too hard. It's too hard. But just because your federal work study eligibility is only 10 hours a week for a total of, let's just say that's $1,500, that doesn't mean that you can only work 10 hours a week. That means you can work 20 hours a week, because remember, that's the maximum, till you reach $1,500. Once you've earned $1,500, then, well, actually, this is part of that communication that I'm talking about. Before you hit that $1,500, we're going to reach out to the supervisor and say, hey, Zarai's getting close to her maximum federal work study eligibility for this semester. So once she hits that, are you as a department going to take over her, payments, or are you terminating her until the next time she's eligible? And that really would only happen in the spring, because remember, eligibility, if you didn't work at all in the summer, you kind of have that eligibility. If you didn't work at all in the fall, you can have that eligibility. So really, we're only going to see stuff like that happen likely in the spring. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen in other terms, but it's likely to only happen in that term. So those are communications that we're going to be starting, with the supervisors, especially as we focus on trying to get students to use federal work study as much. We want to make sure that supervisors know that, at what point they can switch. But it's a huge misconception that if you find out, and I don't know where this started. I mean, it was like that, when I got here, but, students only eligible for what averages out to be 7 hours of federal work study. That doesn't mean that 7 hours this week is federal work study and the other 13 hours are departmental. The payroll office would probably all up and quit if we did that to them. The student would just, work up to 20 hours, earn that maximum federal work study award for the term. And then, like I said, before it runs out, we would have that, we would notify the supervisor that the student's getting close, and the supervisor has to make a decision. Either yes, switch to departmental, then guess what? That's a whole new payroll authorization form, but you don't have to worry about that as a student. Or no, we don't have the budget, so this, so we're ceasing, relationship with that student right now. Doesn't mean the student's terminated. It just means that maybe they have to wait until next semester. I haven't seen that happen, to be honest, because departments do have those funds. I'm not telling that it couldn't happen, but I have yet to see that actually happen. maybe because we haven't been telling supervisors that yet. That's not something that we're doing. And that actually, I thought that led to another question, but I might have just lost my train of thought. So so how do I keep track of the hours I work? I think, Zarai, your example of doing an Excel spreadsheet to keep those hours is great. But students who are working on campus, which are going to be most of them, to be honest, I think, Zarai and Danielle, I think your positions are special because of the roles that you have as student senators. I'm not aware of that many. Like, our students couldn't work from home because we need them to answer the phones and help students that are walking in. So that's not something we can do from home. So it's not something that they can do from home. So that's kind of, I don't want to say a luxury, but that's not very typical of a lot of the positions that are available right now. But when you're on campus, actually, I don't know, other than keeping the Excel spreadsheet, can you see the time when you go in to enter your time card? Can you see it? I would imagine you could. You could see what you entered, right? Sarai, do you know? I don't know what it looks like.
Once I submit it to my supervisor, she works it out, and then I do get an email saying that my time card was approved. And from there I can kind of have an overview or a summary of the hours that were put in and what the total hours were. But there's no tasks listed on that one because that's the hours time card.
Yeah, I would still, just because I keep track of everything. I mean, the system keeps track of my vacation and sick time and personal time, but I do that myself too. So, and I think it's just habit. I always like to know where I'm at, and because you can only check into those things while you're on campus for the most part. I mean, there's a way that we can check, different systems and stuff like that, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I think that's why I do it. I do it in Excel. I keep it in my Google Docs, and I can look at it no matter where I am, on campus or off. So I think that's a great idea. It's a great habit to get into, as an employee. When I started at Baldwin Wallace, which was 2 schools ago, they actually their system did not keep track of sick and vacation time, so we had to do it ourselves. So I think I just got in that habit, even when I was at Akron. System did it, but not like a control thing, but I just like to know. I just like to know at an instant, and I'm in my Google, I'm in my Gmail all the time. It's just real easy to pop over there.
And on top of that, in order for me to do like the time card easier make it easier every week, on my calendar I actually create as if it was like an appointment or event, and I just put tasks of the day, click the all day button, and just put everything I did in that shift. And then at the end of the week I just copy and paste that into the Excel sheet.
Perfect.
But I do that for me anyway. It's just
workshops.
Exactly. I do that for my own benefit, just because I like to keep track of the things I do because I can't remember everything. But it's also beneficial for the worksheet because they can see what I've been doing. So just wanted to put that in there.
And you don't know this, but or maybe you do, but it's kind of required as a student working not on campus for your supervisor to be able to sign off on that time. So way to go, Selena. What are the benefits of working on campus, and how do I capture my learning? So the benefits, we talked about the benefits, and how do I capture my learning? I'm not really sure sorry, was that one of your questions, or can you give some more insight into what do you think that might, I'm not sure
what that means.
Yeah.
So that one, it was a mixture of a question of my own personal question and a frequently asked questions list that I found online.
Oh, okay.
So for the benefits, we covered them. A lot of experience in the office, and we have different student employment positions for not every major, but there is positions available for like to have experience and provide experience for the field and major that you are in.
Right.
And that's campus wide. It's not just for enrollment, financial, and career services. There's more departments on campus that hire student employees. So student worker, sorry. So that was one that I just provided it so we can dive deeper into the kind of like the experience in a way and capture my learning. I think that one's more of different examples of how to apply what you're learning in your major into your job, which is kind of the
Yeah.
same thing. But
So
yeah.
so now that you said that, it actually reminds me of something I've had in my experience where we had a student employee apply for a staff position, and and uh, I was new, so I didn't know the person that well, and I wasn't part of the interview process. But the people in the committee asked me to talk with her because they felt really bad that she had been a student employee for a while but didn't get that position. So I looked at her stuff, and this is where I cannot stress enough. And I know we did have somebody here from Career Services. They left, so hopefully they watch this later and know that I'm giving them a lot of shout outs here. But that is where working with Career Services is really important, because as a student you might not think that you need a resume, but if you're applying for a I don't want to say a real job, that's not what I'm saying, but if you're applying for a staff position, you really should have a resume, especially if you're at our college and Career Services is like right next door, right? Or it's available to everybody, students and employees. So that was one of the problems is if because sometimes steering committees, these search committees will be like, well, let's rule out everybody who didn't upload a resume because we required a resume. Boom, right off the bat, you're ruled out. Now, it's not always going to be like that, but it could be. So why not at least have that resume? But in having that conversation with her, she's like, well, I didn't really know how to put into words what it is that I do. That's again where Career Service, that's exactly what they are supposed to do, among 8 million other things. But that's what they do. They help you identify the tasks that you're doing and create that and translate that into bullet points of the way that it's the way that resumes are supposed to have this information. I'm still struggling for these words because once I applied for this job, I'm like, oh please, I don't want to do anything for a really long time. So I kind of wiped out resumes and things like that. But that's and so Ryan, you can speak to that. That's what that office does. They can help you find the words. And then this is a secret, and it's not that big of a secret. But what you're supposed to do, again, I don't work in Career Services, but this is what I did to apply for this position. I looked at what the job description said, and it was a beautifully written job description, and that's how I knew that I wanted to apply for this job, because I was like, oh, I know how to do that. Oh, I want to learn how to do that. But I took what it is that they were looking for, and I made sure that my resume helped them check off all those boxes. I didn't copy it word for word, but I used those concepts to, and maybe my resume already said that, but maybe I could have been more clear about, how to help. Basically, what I was trying to do is help the steering committee draw that line. Like, we're looking for this. Oh, look, she has that. Again, not a word for word thing, but, as you're putting together a resume, sometimes a cover letter, I really appreciate cover letters, but not all jobs require a cover letter. Mine, I had to write a damn paper for, just so you know. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. But sometimes the further along you get, it gets a little more tricky. But that's exactly what they do. You can take your the job position in, and you can be like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I really want to get this job. Can you help me build my resume? And they will help you translate the skills that you have into meeting those the requirements or the things that the employer is looking for. So
yes, absolutely. And working there, even as a student before working there, the workshops they're there. They're available, and they have so many resources to help students find what they need and help them with what they need, because they have, so first of all, they have the assessments, right, that help you find out what your personality is, find out majors and careers that match or align with those results, those personality results. And from there, they have They have resume workshops on how to put your life experience, your work experience into words that like what Carrie just said, help the employer check off those boxes from what they're looking for. Because we know what we've experienced. We know what we know and what we don't know. They don't know that. So what those workshops help is how to layer it out clear for the employer, and also how to help you. It also helps you expand your vocabulary and how to and when it comes to describing yourself and what you don't and don't know, and what you're looking for in a job as well. And they also have interviewing skills workshops where they help you get familiar with the questions that employers might ask, and how to answer them, more importantly, and just get you familiar with that environment and the more comfortable you are, still professional, still representational, there we go, the more easier it gets, the more the nerves tend to calm down, and the more you'll be able to exceed and succeed in that. So that actually reminds me, we have a career services open forum for March 31st. So join us then to learn more about career services, even though we've given of it much of a plug during this workshop. And that leads to our last.
Let me add one more thing to that.
Go ahead.
If all of these things that we just talked about, the things that you do with career services and everything, these are things that you have to do when you get out into the real world. So why not do a test run in college, right? It's all about the learning experience. So why not go through all of that, have yourself prepared, and get to that point where where you already have a base for a resume, and then you can just add on from there. It's great when you don't have to start off from scratch.
Yes, absolutely. And to answer or extend the answer for the benefits of working on campus, from my personal experience, one of the benefits that I found is you just get to know the people around you. You get to know the faculty, the staff, the professors, everybody, other student workers. And the more you connect and build that professional relationship and you network with people in your department or so, that can extend to recommendation letters, so letters of support for other positions or other jobs that you're applying, but also for scholarship applications. If there's scholarships that require recommendation letters or letters of support from someone that's not in your family, your student worker supervisor is a perfect fit for that. But in order to feel comfortable enough to ask for that, there needs to be that relationship, that professional network with them. And from there comes they might themselves recommend you for another position within that department, or within another department inside the college or outside of the college for that matter. And it would also extend for opportunities to be part of different scholarship committees. There's fellowships outside of campus from partnering institutions that are looking for students that have certain skills. And if those skills were developed on the job, on your student position, there you go. There's a recommendation for you. There's an experience to back that recommendation up. It's just, I've had a very good experience in working on campus as a student worker. So I really want students to take advantage of it while you can. So yeah, that's the end of that.
Yeah, well, and some of, I mean, I can tell you, I could look at my Facebook page and I'm friends with some of the students that used to work for me. One at the University of Akron reaches out every once in a while as he's looking for his, unfortunately it's a bad time for biologists, without experience to be looking for positions, but he lets me know I'm one of his references. So, I get invited to their weddings, and these are just, really lifelong friendships sometimes that
Mm-hmm.
they turn into, because you really build that time and you build that experience with them. So many different opportunities for that, and it's definitely something that I really look forward to growing as a program at the college, because it's just so important. It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we come to our last question, which is, can federal work study affect my food assistant or unemployment benefits? I know from personal experience, I applied for SNAP during my time at working at Career Services, and honestly, all I had to do for my proof of income was get my pay stubs, which is a form that your supervisor I asked my supervisor for them, and they connect me to payroll. And then they get to you, and that's just saying how much you've earned in the last 30 days or so with the pay rate that you are in. So I have to do that again now to update my income for the SNAP application. And I don't know how it will affect it. It's never affected me in a negative way. But in order to keep those documentations up to date, that's the process that I've had to follow. So that's my answer.
And that's very helpful, because I do not know specifically, um, and I'm not afraid to say when I don't know the answer. I do know that recently, SNAP, which is the food assistance, they just revamped, or I don't want to say just, there were going to be some changes that were going to make it harder for college students to be eligible for these benefits. And those have actually been backtracked and made a lot easier. So we actually, student financial aid, based on information that we had from the FAFSA, because some of this, you have to have a zero EFC. You can get SNAP benefits if you have a zero EFC now. And so we sent out an email to all students with that information to say, hey, these SNAP benefits changed. You may now be eligible where before you were. And so here's another reason you should fill out a FAFSA. Because if you didn't, and we sent this email, you wouldn't have known about it. So there are just all sorts of information. Now, I want to make it very clear that student financial aid does not share FAFSA information with any other office on campus.
Mhm.
We may notify students of things, but we never we would never give that list of all of those students with that requirement to another office. So like ARC was like, oh, we'll send it out for you. And we're like, we'll do it. Thank you. That information is very, very private. We never would CC all of those students. It's always, if we're not sending out emails individually, it's definitely a BCC. We take that information very, very seriously. Not just because we have to, but it's very private, very sensitive information. It's important for you to get these messages for those students that it applies to, but you have to know that we do not share that type of information. It's a lot of times we collect the information from other offices. So if we're looking for students who meet a certain criteria for a scholarship, let's say it's a major, we'll reach out to the academic side, the records registrar's office, and we're like, can you give us a list of all of these students with these major criteria? And then we bring it back in, and then we cross-reference it with the FAFSA information. So I just felt that was really important to add. But that is something that we do. The government made some changes. It could very much affect our students, and so we wanted them to know. And the only way to find out who to send that to without sending it to every single student that we have was to use FAFSA information.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've reached the end of the list we had prepared of questions. If there's anyone in our that's joining us today from our participants, if you guys have any questions, this is the time to do so, to say them. And I also want to plug in that we have a feedback form. We want to hear your feedback on everything. So there's that. This is a time for you guys to grab that link, fill that out so that we know how we're doing, how these events are benefiting you, what are your takeaways, things like that. and we really thank you for joining us today. And all right, we've reached the end of our questions. So if there's nothing from the students that have joined us today, we will come to a close. This meeting has been recorded. It is being recorded, and we will upload it to our Student Senate YouTube channel. That's a thing now. So for those who have not been able to join us today or in the sessions prior, they are recorded and they are on YouTube. So get to that feedback form, and you'll be able to see them again. So with that, I hope you all have learned a lot from today's workshop, and I encourage all of our attendees to fill out the feedback form. And I want to thank Carrie Short for collaborating with us to do this event, and I thank the students that joined us today. It was a pleasure hosting this event and providing the space for you guys to ask your questions and become familiar with the Student Financial Aid Office. And I hope that you will visit their office and make use of their resources. I also want to remind you guys that our second general meeting is coming up this Friday, the 19th from 3 to 4. That is where we will give more information, more updates about events that we have coming up for the rest of the semester. So please join that, and you can follow us on all of our social medias. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And join us next Monday, February 22nd from 12 to 1:30 for our game day. That's the last event in our Financial Aid Awareness Month series. There will be at least 4 giveaways. And so those that have attended all of our sessions will be entered in a chance to win a $250 gift card to the campus bookstore. So I hope that you guys will join us next week and the general meeting at the end of this week. So thank you very, very much. And for the sake of formality, I am Zariah Aquino, again, the Student Senate President for Lorain County Community College. And I will let Danielle and Carrie Short reintroduce themselves so you have the information.
And I am Danielle Pavlak, Vice President to Student Senate, and I appreciate everybody joining us today.
Yeah, I'm Carrie Short, Director of Student Financial Aid. If you have any questions about this presentation, feel free to reach out to us at finaid@loraincccc.edu. We'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you very, very much for joining us today. Thank you again, Carrie. This has been a very good workshop. I've enjoyed all of them so far, and I hope that our students have a lot of takeaways. So with that, I will end this meeting, and meeting adjourned. And thank you again. I hope to see you all at our general meeting and on our game day next week. So have a good Monday and the rest of the week.